Hello everybody, this is Llodg, and this is Star Wars Battlefront 2. Star Wars Battlefront 2 originally released on the Xbox, PS2, and PC all the way back on October 28, 2005. Just like my previous video on the first Battlefront, I am playing this game on the Xbox Series X through backwards compatibility with the original disc. So this is the Xbox version, looking a bit better than the original. Also, it has all the DLC that came along with Battlefront 2 on Xbox. I also own Battlefront 2 on PC, and it's mostly the same. The only difference is that the main menu on the Xbox is much cooler than on PC. Anyway, this game was also developed by Pandemic Studio, so it's very similar to the previous game with the same gameplay loop, but the game also has some differences. Like the last video, I will really only be talking about the single player mode since I have no friends, but I believe that there are still servers on PC, so if you really want to play multiplayer, it's there for you. Now let's go down the list and start with the first mode, Training, which actually has you play in the Battle of Geonosis from Attack of the Clones as your tutorial, which is really cool. Also, this mission uses the original clone models from the first game, since in this battle they used Phase 1 armor, but other than on this one map, the clones will all be in their fancy new Phase 2 armors, which is really weird that we had to wait for Revenge of the Sith for these armors to become real, because I forgot that Revenge of the Sith introduced this new phase of armor during my first video. But yeah, I really like this tutorial. It gives you all the basics, even as you switch his classes and become a Jedi. Wait, you become a Jedi? Yeah, Battlefront 2 added the amazing feature of letting you actually become a hero throughout the game. I'm not sure on the exact specifics on regular multiplayer games when you can become a hero. I think you have to do really well, but in the campaign they'll let you play as them when certain objectives come up, and in the tutorial you get to play as Mace Windu. Now most of the heroes in this game are Jedi or Sith, but there are a few that don't use the Force or a lightsaber at all. The hero you get is dependent on the faction you're on, but also the map you are on. So on Geonosis you can play as Mace Windu, but on Kashyyyk you can play as Yoda. Each hero has different abilities, as you can see in the bottom left hand corner of your screen, and many will share abilities, but my favorite ability has to be able to throw your lightsaber at the enemy. This mode also introduced us to the cutscenes that this game has, because unlike the previous game, this game actually has non-movie cutscenes. They are from the perspective of the clones of the 501st Legion, which is also Anakin's Legion for those who know the lore. These cutscenes are really cool as they are voiced by Temuera Morrison, the actor for Jango Fett and Boba Fett, and the live-action clones. This was during a time when you could maybe get one of the actors to be in the game based off of that movie, so it's really cool that Temuera Morrison is actually in this game. And that's the tutorial. I think it's a great way to introduce new players to the game. Also, the backdrop of it being the first battle clones are present in is just so cool. Next is the space overview. That's right, in Battlefront 2 there are actually space battles that take place between capital ships, but this mode's just a video, which is weird that they wouldn't give a little setup battle to ease you into it like the tutorial, but whatever. The next mode is the campaign for the game, Rise of the Empire. Like the last game, the campaign follows the story of the movies, though this time you don't switch between the different factions, you stay as the 501st throughout the whole campaign. It also starts out with a title crawl with the fall of the Old Republic. Okay, not that Old Republic, though I wish. The title crawl brings us up to speed into the Clone Wars, and throws us into our first battle with Cayu Mundi. Now I won't be going over everything we do in this campaign, because a lot of it is just seeing a scene from Revenge of the Sith and making a whole mission out of it, but I will be talking about the highlights. The next mission takes place in the opening of Revenge of the Sith with the battle over Coruscant. Of course, this is a perfect time to show off the space combat of the game, so you start out in your faction's capital ship and are able to fly the variety of ships that spawn there. You're able to fly out and either battle enemy ships in combat, destroy parts of the enemy's capital ships, or even fly into the enemy ship and destroy it from the inside. Sadly, there are only 2 classes to choose from space combat, but there wasn't really a need for all the classes to be here. Overall, I think space combat is a great addition to the game. I love being able to fly around and looking down to see the planet below, it's just so cool. Though it did take me a while to get the hang of the controls. While playing through the campaign, the levels will have their own missions. For example, on Felucia, you have objectives like killing the hostile wildlife, which can add a bit of variety to the missions from the first Battlefront, where every mission was just your standard game. In fact, in Battlefront 2, there are no instances in the campaign of the levels being your standard conquest game type. I know I just kind of praise this campaign for not having it, but I do wish some of the missions were just conquest. Also, the campaign really shows off the amount of different heroes that are playable. Like, I get that Revenge of the Sith came out and showed off all these Jedi on different planets, but I would not have thought we'd actually get to play as Aayla Secura in this type of game. I would have thought it would just be limited to Anakin and Obi-Wan, but we actually get a really good variety. There will also be some missions where you have to do a space battle before you can do the ground battles, like on Kashyyyk. These space battles can be kinda difficult. Like when I was playing this on PC, I got stuck on the mission for hours because I couldn't destroy the comm ships before my reinforcements went down. Oh, also, unlike the first game, if your reinforcements are down to 1, they will just leave you, so the game doesn't just end if your AI teammates die, which is a nice change. Completing each mission can also give you an increase in your current reinforcements, which is really nice if you're just pulling the missions off by the skin of your teeth. You eventually get to Utapau. Wait, I thought it was only Obi-Wan's Legion here. Why is the 501st here? I guess they are just so good they are brought everywhere. Anyway, I like this mission because you get to play as Obi-Wan and fight Grievous head to head. Okay, it may not be as cool as the movies, but use your imagination a little bit. Now onto the best mission in all of Battlefront 2, the Assault on the Jedi Temple. That's right, you actually get to participate in Order 66 and fight against Jedi in the Jedi Temple. You get to capture the Jedi Council Room, defend the archives from being destroyed, which is like the hardest objective in the game. Like I was so close to losing it all. Oh, by the way, if you end up failing any objective, you have to restart the mission over again, which on some levels can be kind of annoying. Anyway, then you steal some holocrons, and then you get to play as Anakin and kill young— okay, it's actually just a cutscene, but it's close enough. But you do get to play as Anakin, which is really cool. He even has his hood on like in the movie. And after defeating some Jedi Masters, the clone campaign is over, and you see the transition to the Empire. Despite what current canon states, you still play as the 501st Legion of Clones, though they are in Stormtrooper armor. And hey, we even get another text crawl of the Rise of the Empire, so like the first game, there is technically 2 campaigns, though I guess that's more like 2 acts. Anyway, the Rise of the Empire campaign isn't nearly as good as the Fall of the Old Republic, though I do have to say there are some really cool missions, like putting down rebellions on Naboo, destroying the remaining droids on Mustafar, putting down a clone rebellion on Kamino, and getting to play as Boba Fett. Like, it's kinda weird he'd be on the Empire side against the clones, but I guess he isn't like them. Then you get to try to stop the rebellion from stealing the Death Star plans, and even get to recreate the end of Rogue One. Okay, maybe Rise of the Empire has some cool missions, but it literally ends at the Battle of Hoth, which I guess was the last big Empire win shown in the movies. And I guess Cloud City wasn't really a battle, but whatever. It just feels so weird to end the campaign there. I also didn't feel like the campaign was leading to a real end or anything there, it just kinda ended. It would have been so cool to have the last mission be a space battle over Endor trying to defend the Death Star 2 from being blown up, and have it end kinda like Halo Reach 5 years before Reach by having us lose. That would have been really cool. It also would have made sense ending the campaign at the end of one of the movies and not the start of one. Other than the Clone Rebellion, I didn't really think there were many missions where the clones felt important to the playable characters. Like throughout the Fall of the Old Republic, the narration is constantly talking about betraying the Jedi, and it's only a matter of time, which I thought was really cool.
What I remember about the rise of the Empire is how quiet it was. During the waning hours of the Clone Wars, the 501st Legion was discreetly transferred back to Coruscant. It was a silent trip. We all knew what was about to happen, what we're about to do. Did we have any doubts? Any private, traitorous thoughts? Perhaps, but no one said a word. Not on the flight to Coruscant, not when Order 66 came down, and not when we marched into the Jedi Temple. Not a word.
But the clones in the Empire just are not given that dilemma at all, though I do have to give them props for letting the Empire fight both clones and droids. It makes for cool, memorable missions. Overall, I like the campaign, though by the end I was just kind of waiting for it to be over. Like there are some missions that felt like they were just way too long and kind of repetitive as I kept dying and having to run all the way back just to die again. I mentioned it before, but the cutscenes in the game are so cool. I love hearing the clone perspective, and this blurry effect on the cutscenes is pretty cool. Nothing amazing happens in any of these cutscenes, but they are a nice change of pace from only having movie clips in the last game. Speaking of movie clips, they return in this game, though they are amazingly short. Sometimes they don't even correlate to the correct planet. Also, most of them are from Revenge of the Sith, which makes sense since this was the brand new movie at the time, and the first game couldn't have had Episode 3's clips in it at all. These clips will appear before you enter a mission. They are just to give you a feel for what the planet and type of mission you're doing. And hey, they're even in a widescreen this time. Way to step up from last game, guys. Also, I have no idea where this clip is from. It's before the Polis Massa mission to try and find the Death Star plans, but like, I don't recognize this clip at all. It's been a while since I've watched Revenge of the Sith, but I can't even pin down where this would be in the movie. And I don't think this clip would be made just for this game because of how short its development was. and it would be so weird if this was the only clip made for this game. Like, is this a deleted scene from the movie? Let me know in the comments if you know anything about it. It has confused me for so long. As I said before, the only two factions you get to play in the campaign are the Republic and the Empire, so if you've been wanting to play as the other factions, you can do so in the next game mode, Galactic Conquest. That's right, it returns from the previous game, and it's so much better. Unlike Battlefront 1, I've actually played this Galactic Conquest a ton, and that's because it's really good. The only thing it shares from the previous game is that you go and conquer planets, but in this game you are in a capital ship on a huge map of the galaxy, and you and the enemy faction move around from planet to planet, and when you're over an enemy controlled planet, you get to play a match to see if you can win the planet. Also, if you and your enemy are on the same space, you get to engage in a space battle. In this mode you have to unlock units to actually play as them, which is nice, since it means that you can slowly unlock more and more as you're playing so it doesn't immediately get repetitive. You can also buy bonuses like heroes or energy boosts to make the next match go in your favor. It's kinda lame that all the assets are for the Republic clones, but it's whatever. And yeah, I really like this mode. It's basically a big campaign with you deciding on what you want to do. I don't know, maybe I'm really lame, but I really love deciding on which planet to go to next like I was actually in the Clone Wars. And yeah, Galactic Conquest is pretty simple but adds a ton of replayability, especially since you can play as any of the 4 factions, though I do wish you could choose which faction you're going against. Kind of a missed opportunity in my opinion. Now onto the final mode of the game, Instant Action, which also returns. Like the last game, you're able to choose which maps you want to play on. You can even do a bunch in a row and what factions you play as, though you can't mix the eras around, which is really weird since they do it twice in the Rise of the Empire campaign, but it's only there. Like, I get that clones versus stormtroopers would be kind of difficult to tell apart, but you had us already do that in a mission, so what's the big deal? Just let me fight rebels as droids. But anyway, you're able to choose which game mode you want to play, with Conquest, Capture the Flag, Assault, and Hunt. You can also change the settings for the modes to fit more what you want from the game. You already know what Conquest is, and Capture the Flag is exactly what you'd expect. It's kinda cool that depending on what map you play on decides if it's 2 or single flag CTF, but yeah, I'm sure it's more fun with friends, so I'm not just destroying the AI in this game. The next mode is Assault, which is heroes versus heroes, with you being able to choose whether you want to be on either the hero or villain side, and there is no era gatekeeping here, so you can play as Jango Fett and fight against Luke Skywalker. I forgot to record any gameplay of this, so please just use your imagination to imagine what it's like. Oh no, psh psh, it's Jango Fett, don't worry, Mace Windu's here, get him, psh psh. I saw his Ventress is here, psh, Luke and Vader destroying the Empire, psh psh psh. And Hunt has you either playing as hunters or the hunted. Like in Endor you can play as Ewoks or Stormtroopers hunting them down. Please play this for yourself. Trust me, it's a fun time. Also, I feel like the overall menu design for the instant action is a downgrade because you don't get to see any of the little previews for the maps. I don't know, this menu is just so boring to me. And yeah, those are all the modes in the game, a big step up from the previous game, and all the different modes allow for much more replayability without feeling bored of doing the same thing over and over again. The basic gameplay is roughly the same as the last game. I mean, rolling is a bit different since you can do it in any direction, but you still have different classes and each faction has its own variety of classes. They have changed some of the classes from the last game, like the Dark Trooper now has his lightning gun, which is pretty cool. And the standard trooper for the droid army is a super battle droid, which is kind of weird since I feel like the regular battle droids with a blaster should have been the default. Also, you can play as Grievous as Magna Guards, which is cool. The ground vehicles also return and are basically the same as the last game. You can even drive the AT-AT at a super fast speed of 1 mile per hour. There are a variety of spaceships you can fly dependent on your faction, and they are all pretty cool, though I didn't really have a standout favorite. I'm just lucky I didn't crash all the time. There is a really big variety of maps, which is nice, with a lot of them being brand new for this game and based on moments seen in Revenge of the Sith. There are returning ones like Hoth, Mos Eisley, and Rinvar. Also, I learned from the last game that Rinvar was featured in Pandemic Studios' previous game, Attack of the Clones. Thanks to Dylan W. Films for letting me know on the first Battlefront video. Still a weird inclusion for a map. Now it's time to talk about the graphics for the game, and while it isn't a huge step up from the previous game, I think it's really nice. Like, there's a lot of texture work that makes the game stand out against its predecessor. I really love the clone armor. The blue colors of the 501st are really nice. The human faces still aren't exactly there yet, but for 2005, I honestly expected a lot worse. Especially when only one faction isn't primarily behind a helmet or our droids. Now, if you've seen my channel before, you know I love talking about skyboxes, and the skyboxes in the space levels are so nice. I just love being able to see Coruscant while I'm in a space battle. It's such a nice detail that you can see the planet you're over that I really like. Also, I'm pretty sure the skybox in Hoth is just an image that's wrapped around the map. Now, the music. Had to be turned down all the way for copyright reasons. But it's Star Wars music, of course it's going to be great. The sound effects are also very Star Wars with the blaster shots and lightsaber sounds. Sadly, the menu sound effects are pretty boring compared to the last game. Now I want to talk about the little things throughout the game that I noticed. First, I want to say how impressed I am that Ventress is actually in this game. She was in the first Clone Wars show, and I just didn't expect she'd be in here. Also, I totally don't remember her being in this game at all. Also, since I'm playing on Xbox, that means I have the free DLC with Kit Fisto, and he's pretty cool, but for some reason he doesn't have a shirt on. Must be cold here on Renvar. But I do have the variety of heroes that are here. Like, it isn't even limited to just Jedi, you can also have heroes with blasters like Boba Fett and Han Solo. You can even play as Palpatine when playing on the Death Star. It's a little weird that heroes are tied to specific maps, unless you're playing Assault. Like, it'd be cool to play as Yoda on Geonosis or something. Much like the merging of eras, I just think it'd be something cool. Also, when you're playing as heroes, I think it's kind of weird that Anakin is just a villain. Like, I get it, but it's also kind of weird. Also, I think it's weird that Aayla Secura has different colored lightsabers in the cutscenes than she does in the game. Maybe it's just the filter that they used, but it's just something that I noticed that's really weird. The aim assist is thankfully not as high in this game, so I felt like I was actually aiming most of the time. Also, the zoom in for third person is fixed to not be at the top of the screen, which is really nice. First person also returns, and while I prefer third person overall, it's still a really nice addition. Also, now for what may be the worst change in the game, they changed the loading screen from the Great Planet zoom into this really boring picture of a clone. Like, yeah, it loads so much faster, but we lost so much for it. I mean, it goes to show how much better that original loading screen was when, despite playing Battlefront 2 a lot more, I thought that Battlefront 1 loading screen was used for both games. It's just so iconic. Also, the PC version, while similar, has a different main menu, and I gotta say the main menu on Xbox is just so much better. Using clips from the movies on the side just throws me right into the galaxy. So yeah, Battlefront 2 is a really good sequel to the game that came out only 1 year after its predecessor, which is still really crazy to me. This game added in so much with so many different changes that I am really curious as to how much overlap was between the two games. Like, obviously they reused a ton, but still, space battles are just so cool and definitely should be a series staple. What do you mean that none of the other console games have space battles on this scale? Yeah, sadly there's no Battlefront 3, but we do have the DICE games and the PSP games. And I've not ever played the PSP games, so let me know in the comments if you think I should make a video on them. But my next Star Wars video will be Republic Commando, since that's what you guys voted for in the poll, which will be fun. But yeah, let me know what you think about the original Battlefront 2, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day, and goodbye!